Can we bring more spice than James Vowels? What deal with the devil would you make as a Ferrari driver? Welcome to Tinfoil Helmet, your occasional spicy hot take roundup of the latest F1 rumours, all with almost believable conspiracy theories to back them up. Everything here is researched carefully for hours to make sure it is founded in logic, reason, and truth. Or not. Who knows? What did we get right?
Well, the first bullet point was Kimi. We did not elaborate very well, at least in our show notes, of what we predicted as far as this, because it just says Kimi. And so, I mean, Kimi Räikkönen was in the Sauber garage.
1 point.
Kimi Antonelli did things.
He got confirmed for Mercedes. 2 points. 3 points. He binned it. I think it's a full 3 points.
Okay, I question the logic on all this, but our batting average meets the help, so sure, 3 points for one prediction.
Yes, perfect. We also predicted that Ferrari and Merc would get a podium.
That's worth half a point.
Yeah, I'll give us half a point for that one. We'll talk about why in a minute. And then Haas can't race at Monza because their cars are in lockdown to the Netherlands. I think we probably shouldn't give any points here, but we almost deserve like a 0.1 of a point because they were delayed by an extra day compared to everybody else.
I was thinking this prediction was just one race in the future, given what happened with Kevin Magnussen.
Fair. We can give ourselves a full half point for this, actually. Then.
I won't, but I'm just...
We deserve it, but we won't because
we won't. I think we have to keep this fair and balanced. I think it's fair, but I think we're getting our prediction mojo back. We're just a little early.
Okay, fair. We're easing into it. We don't want to look like we've done anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we see what happened between the races? A very short week where actually surprisingly many things actually happened.
And most of it came out of the mouth of James Vowels.
They did. A certain team member reached the limit of his abilities. Now, do we think this was Alex Albon, or do we think this was the original GOAT, Logan Sargent?
I think it was Logan Sargent because...
You are correct. What a good guess. That was went out on a limb there.
I thought you were going to say original GOAT Nicholas Latifi.
Well, there we find him. He went to pursue a job in economics.
He also reached the limit of his abilities.
Do
you think there's anything more demoralizing for a racing driver than hearing a team principal say you have reached the limit of your abilities?
No, and James Vowels did it for more than one driver. Before we go into that, we should point out that the replacement, Franco Colapinto, I can't remember his first name, but Colapinto, it was so rushed and so last minute, despite the fact it was announced on Monday. By the time they produced the sign for the garage, they spelt it wrong and it was Franco Colapinto. I have not seen any shots of it to see if they've addressed it since then, but I thought that was a pretty bad moment.
Well, that is a little bit more of the Italian pronunciation.
True. Somebody said it over a phone and didn't spell it in an email, because we know that the Italians still like every person to person to use the telephone.
Sure.
What else happened in the process of firing Logan? Well, Mick didn't get it. No. And before we said what James Vowels said, there were pictures on Getty Images, stock images that were taken of Ralph, Mick, and I think either his mum or his sister on the top of the Mercedes motorhome in the Netherlands, and they looked really upset, and Mick was like, had his head in his hands. And I think we know why now, because he got told that, what was the comment that James Vowels said?
He wasn't special, only good.
Man, that's kind of brutal. Toto was upset at this, and Vowels had to make a retraction, or not a retraction, but clarification. I don't think really clarified it. So,
I want James Vowels to go through and say his true opinions about every driver on the grid now.
Oh yeah, me too.
Past and present.
Yeah, he's been pretty much about Lewis, so that's something.
Well, sure, I mean, that was good. But then there's a whole thing of, like, apparently Liam was their first choice to fill the seat, Liam Lawson. But Red Bull didn't want to loan him out unconditionally for the rest of the season because they wanted to make sure he was available to replace someone in one of their cars if necessary.
Dun, dun, dun. Who is it? We don't know. Who could be replaced?
Maybe a front wing mechanic.
Front wing mechanic. Wow, Liam, we've got you a job in the F1 team and our contract was written just so that we don't actually have to let you drive. We will talk more about that later, though. Anything else to add about Paul Logan? I feel kind of bad for him, but life is life.
It's one of those things that with 8 races left in the season, or I guess 9 before, like, when you've already gone, and this is like a 20-something race season, like, you're already over halfway through, you're almost done. He still has 2 home races to go. Like, I understand not keeping him, but then, like, this just seems like he hasn't done anything better or worse than he did last season. So, like, why did you put him in the car if you were willing to do this the whole way? Why did you wait till one race after the summer break? Because he didn't, I guess he did bin it in FP3.
I think that's what it was. I think the reality is he was costing them too much.
Sure.
The reality is if he binned it then, he's probably statistically speaking going to bin it once, maybe twice again before the end of the season. And it's just too expensive. And the new guy, Mr. Colapinto, we'll talk about his result in a moment, but he nearly binned it, but I think that's a key difference. I think if Logan had been in the same situation, Logan would have put it in the wall, and Colapinto twice kept it going and didn't hit the wall, unlike a certain other person who we'll talk about in a moment. But I think that really is the differentiator. And I know that sucks, but like that's why I didn't pick Mick, to be brutally honest. Like if you're going to put Mick in a car, you have to accept he's going to bin it.
Fair enough. But it's I don't know, it's fine. Like I get it, it's a business. It's just it seems weird that like why did you just replace him before the season then?
Yeah, I think I'm willing to say that like, James Vowels said they had a conversation with him and they'd done some stuff and it looked like he had been improving towards the end of last season. Maybe it was okay. The bit I don't get is why you didn't just replace him with something. Like if he was really on the bubble, you'd know he was going to bin it again.
Yeah, he's reached the limit of his abilities, and I feel like we knew that after Abu Dhabi last year.
Oh, I agree. But I think James Vowels is trying to be a reasonable human being.
Not this week. Anyway,
so Ferrari at their home race decided that they would do another special livery. They got new helmets, they got race suits, they went for black, little carbon fiber look. It was amazing, and they even teased that they would, the livery on the car. They didn't make any difference. They just made the car red, and I don't understand why Ferrari keep doing it. Last year they were looking like McDonald's people. I don't understand last year why they didn't make the car yellow, and this year I don't know why they didn't just take the paint off and make it carbon fiber. I'm like, look, we're fast, we're hitting the minimum weight. Isn't it fantastic? It's very strange. I hate Ferrari for doing this. It's very annoying.
I appreciate that they did not look like McDonald's workers, though.
I do. They did look a little bit like your local petrol station assistants, though.
Speaking of weight, did you see the scuttlebutt between Lewis and George riffing with the Tifosi about apparently when George eats pizza, he's definitely overweight, and when he doesn't eat pizza, like in Belgium, he's underweight and gets DQ'd?
Did you see the follow-up where they were being genuinely serious about this and said that George ate too much pizza in Zandvoort and that's why he was slow?
Yeah.
So, suspicious.
So there's a good travel tip for all you British folks heading abroad. Go to Netherlands for your pizza.
Because it's heavy?
I don't know, but it must have been good for George to eat enough that he gained weight to slow. That must be where British people find good pizza.
Maybe, but being George and having his entourage, I'm pretty sure he brought his own special pizza oven from his special manor house with his special, it's got deer and venison on it rather than, normal things.
Yeah, something tells me George isn't a fan of Italian pizza for some reason.
Yeah. He's probably in cahoots with what's-his-face. Oh no, didn't like pasta. Anyway, so there's been a lot of like Alpine rumours in the past about it being for sale, but it's not really for sale, and the factory back in Versailles, I think, it's not Versailles facilities, the engine factory in France was on strike this weekend. They also sent a special delegation to the track to be in the grandstands and provide some support and do some striking there. But to follow it up, Nico Rosberg, one-time world champion, being a 7-time world champion in the same machinery, has an email in his inbox asking him to participate in a $1 billion purchase of Alpine.
I have to say, Nico Rosberg was just dropping all the random comments and spice throughout the coverage this weekend.
I'm going to say something that's weirdly paradoxical, maybe controversial. I don't really like Nico, but he's the only...
Wait, I thought he was going to be controversial.
He's the only person who does some commentating who does a really good job of dropping what I would call spicy takes in a way that's kind of grounded. Like, when he says things, he's not stirring it like Crofty, he's just dropping truths. And I don't like that. The fact that he's accurate, because I have to have the paradoxical dislike of Nico.
I think this is the thing of when you just come in like for 1 or 2 or 3 races a season, like you don't have to worry about like maintaining friendships throughout the whole season. Things like that. You can just go in and ask Lando, do you think Oscar should have moved aside for you? And like, yeah.
Did you know that Nico Rosberg has an ice cream shop?
Sure.
Did you know that Charles Leclerc's ice cream is not currently for sale in Nico Rosberg's ice cream shop?
Well, that would probably be because if he did sell it in his ice cream shop and it beat him once, Nico would then have to retire from racing or serving ice cream.
Good point. I accept that.
In equal ice cream shops.
Yes. I agree.
Wait, Charles Leclerc has an ice cream?
Yeah, it's called LEC, L-E-C. It's low calorie ice cream.
Pass.
Yeah, I don't know. He said it's very good. He said while making it and designing it with whoever he designs it makes it with, I don't think he redesigned it, made it, but like, gave feedback. He wanted to make sure it tasted really good so that he could eat more of it because he really likes ice cream.
Fair enough, but I'm of the opinion that I would rather have a smaller amount of really good ice cream than a large amount of kind of crappy ice cream.
100% aligned. Do not disagree.
And most of the times I'll have a large amount of really good ice cream.
Yes. Well, yeah.
And that's the problem.
Okay, here's a spicy take. If somebody eradicated ice cream from the planet, I wouldn't be upset.
And this has been the last episode of Tinfoil Helmets. If you want to tell Dominic how wrong you are, please write in at feedback@tinfoilhelmets.com.
Yeah, it shocks a number of people. Speaking of curses and making choices, the Monza curse was maintained this year. I feel like you're actually deciding whether you're going to hang up or not.
I wasn't ready for we can just get rid of all ice cream. Like, if you would come in with like, frankly, I don't think gelato is as great as the Italians think it is. We should just stick ice cream. Be like, yeah, okay, that's a reasonable take. Gelato's fine. Ice cream's fine. We can have one or the other. We don't need both. We're just like, nah, ice cream gone. It's like, huh, okay.
So what if I said this? I felt the same about cheese.
Fair enough. I have to just go on a tangent. I'm sorry about this. And feel free to cut this from the episode. Did you happen to see the video online this week of 2 Brits trying pork ribs in America for the first time?
I saw the subtitles, but I didn't listen to the audio, and I think that probably made it.
Oh, it was the best. It's worth going to find. It's 2 Brits, and apparently they're doing like this whole U.S. tour and trying U.S. food, and they start trying to cut the ribs with a knife and fork. And the wonderful proprietor of this barbecue store or restaurant is like, whoa, no, don't do that. You don't need a knife and fork. You pick it up and they're like, we're sorry, we're new to this. We're trying things. He's like, that's okay. I just couldn't let it go on that long. And then they take like one bite, and it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know meat could taste like this. Like we're from England, where like there's no meat that's soft enough to just fall off the bone. You always have to use a knife and fork.
I do not wish to turn this into another argument about whether British food is good or bad, but that is a false statement, sir.
Yeah, there's no argument needed. It's bad.
I demand satisfaction.
You probably also demand beans on toast. Anyway, so Bert Mylander and the Monza curse.
Yes, he managed to maintain it and did not break it, which is to say that if you win Monza, you will crash next year, and the race last year ended under the safety car. And then I think in possibly the first time ever, the safety car actually crashed. It wasn't crashed into, it crashed of its own free will. Bert binned it, coming into Parabolica, where it appears that his brakes failed, and he spinned it and hit the wall. And he was okay.
To be fair, I believe we should give Bert a lot of credit because he realized the brakes failed, dropped it into a spin to dissipate more energy before it hit the wall because he did, I think, have a passenger with him doing a hot lap, and he did as much as he could to mitigate the energy before they went into the barrier to make it as soft as crash as possible.
He went in backwards, right, as well?
Well, I think once you put in the spin, you're just hoping to...
True, but crashing backwards feels like a good way, because you won't lurch forward when it stops, you'll go back into the seat,
yeah.
That probably helps.
Either way, good job, Bert.
Yeah, you know what this means, though? Charles has to crash next year.
I was just thinking this is the kind of safety car we wanted.
Is it?
I mean, we still get a safety car in the race. Did we get a yellow flag in the race?
I don't think I saw it come up.
Despite George... Anyway, we're good. I'll look up.
Okay. Also, the last piece of big news, and we alluded to it earlier, but Kimi Räikkönen, for a double Kimi weekend, was in the paddock hanging out with the other person who was in the paddock, I think for the first time, Matteo Binotto, who was there with the Sauber, and ergo Kimi was seen in the Sauber garage. But also, Kimi's kids were seen taking pictures with Max and Lewis and Matteo Binotto. I think Kimi's thinking about coming back for Sauber next year.
Yeah, I mean, it is like a hobby to him.
It is like a hobby for him. I think he's done with F1. His kid, though, apparently is pretty good, so I'm waiting for that to be a thing.
Oh, there was one quick thing about Kimi Räikkönen that was hilarious. Kimi Räikkönen debuted in 2001 and was there just watching in a garage. Juan Pablo Montoya debuted in 2001 as a rookie and was there watching his son compete in Formula 3. Fernando Alonso debuted in 2001 as a rookie and was racing.
Still trying to get another championship.
Yeah.
So, do people still have jobs? Apparently, Kimi Antonelli, or as my better half called him, Kimi Caltonelli, which I think needs to become his new name, he binned it in his FP practice in the first 10 minutes. And you know...
Did you not like my inclusion of that of Kimi Antonelli?
Yeah, but I feel like the Cantonelli just feels the can't versus...
Sure.
It's more... There's something about it. But we will see, because we will have him for the whole of next year, because he was announced in the Mercedes for the all of next year, which I think is shocking. I do think it's important to note that the spin doctors were in full move after he binned it. One, every commentator was like, man, that lap that he put in, man, he was going for it, he was really nailing it. A was the first lap, and B was on soft, and he ended up in P20, so the lap wasn't that fast. Two, Toto was giving him a hug, he was right on the radio saying, it's okay, Kimi, it's all good, we don't mind, we know you're amazing and perfect. And I think it's terrible. Which brings us back to Nico Rosberg, who points out that actually probably George Russell's going to lose his seat next year, because Kimi's staying, and Max is going to come in, because Max is done with Red Bull, which we'll talk more about later. Maybe next.
It really will be 2 princes then, won't it?
It will be 2 princes, and that's a great song.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you get it?
Yeah, it's lovely stuff, I love that.
Great.
I wish they were not to do it, but that was a great song. Also, does anybody at Red Bull still have a job? I'm going to say we should talk about more of this in the race, but just to preface it for everybody else, if there's ever been a team that's fallen from grace, it's that one. In the middle of the season, and they have no excuse. Anyway.
I don't falling from grace might even not be like good enough. Like
that's just more of a glide slope rather than just jumping into the abyss.
Because we'll get into it, but like I guess last time Max was in Spain, but like he was second and looking good at Silverstone, and then like it wasn't that long ago that Red Bull still looked really good.
What happened in qualifying? I'm going to say that overall qualifying was kind of not very exciting. It was pretty reasonable, but it happened. The track didn't ramp up. I think everybody was kind of expecting the track to evolve because it's got a brand new surface, and everybody kept missing a Parabolica, which I think was because of the new track. I think that was just confusing people. But it didn't ramp up. I was expecting a big track evolution, and my suspicion, because obviously I'm an expert and know everything you could possibly imagine, Monza's actually used. Like people use it for lots of other events outside of the F1 weekend, and I think that probably helped bed it in. Like I think there was a 24-hour race or a 12-hour race. There was a WEC race there recently, and there's lots of sports car like high-speed driving weekends. I think that's probably why it didn't ramp up. But what actually happened? McLaren nailed it. They did a pretty good job. But in hindsight, I felt like they nailed it. But then I went back and looked at the numbers. The top 6 separated by 180 milliseconds. That's really tight for the top 6.
It doesn't even include a single Red Bull car.
It does not include a single Red Bull car. Max was 700 milliseconds behind Paul. 700. 500 behind Lewis. And Lewis was like depressed about life. Like he thought it was the worst qualifying. His skills were spent. He even said the words, I let my team down massively. Maybe they'll do better with Kimi next year. Shocking. I don't know what's up with that. But Max, 500 milliseconds behind. And that was with a tow from Perez. Perez did his thing. He drives in front of him, opens the window up, makes it smooth for him, and then pulls right out of the way. And Parabolica ruining his own final lap.
I mean, maybe that was what slowed Max down, was having Perez in front of him.
Well, yeah, talk about it. Although in the race result, it's suspicious that Colpin talked about it, but he only was 18th, like Logan. But he didn't win. Most important thing, he went off the track and managed not to win, so that was great. Anything else you'd like to add about qualifying?
Oh, really?
Okay, great. Race recap. As is slowly becoming tradition, I wrote down a prediction immediately after qualifying and before the race recap, and it was Lando bottles it from pole. I'm not quite sure he bottled it, but he did not survive the first lap in the lead.
No, I don't think he bottled it at all. I think I made a comment a couple podcasts ago that this is Lando's best chance to win the World Drivers' Championship because I think Oscar is getting more and more comfortable by the day and is coming for him. And today was just a great example of that. Of he had a good start, he had a good drive, he knew how to get rid of Lando, and Lando's kind of lucky. Like Lando really did not expect Oscar to be there. And you know, if Lando doesn't react how Lando reacts, and those two bin it. Which seemed very likely for a second, or at least he goes spinning off down to the back of the field. Like, it's a very different race. It's a very different looking championship. Mm-hmm. Like, it got interesting there for a little bit. And somehow we didn't have any yellow flags there.
Despite the fact that George went off in turn 1 after basically going too far onto the grass and putting his toe down.
And he clipped one of the front boards.
Is that what did his front wing in?
No, I think he hit Piastri.
Oh, he hit Piastri. Oh, Piastri didn't get damage from it. Good work.
No, I think he just like grazed a wheel or something like that.
Yeah, so George binned it, went all the way and ended up down, and then tried to drive around with a flappy bit hanging off his front wing. And then when it was time to stop, they decided to replace his front wing anyway. And then basically his race was done, and he had a crappy pit stop later. So sucks to be George.
Which just proves the stewards only care about flappy bits falling off your race car when you drive a Haas.
True. Fact. I'm going to skip the next one and we'll come back to that because that might take us a while. Charles wins in a blinder of a strategy that worked and everybody was fantastic. But he stopped before Carlos. Carlos was on the same strategy and Carlos had another 7 laps, I think, on Charles and his tyres died. So credit to Charles, who was whining on the radio, why are you stopping me so early? And kept it all together and managed to pull off a blinder of a win. It's Charles is trying to pick up all the emotional wins this season.
He really is. And you know, winning Monaco, winning Monza, that's a really successful season for Ferrari.
Yes, it is. It's so successful for Ferrari.
But like in the last couple of years, I mean, you know, they're not really fighting for the constructors. They're there, but they're not. They're not really fighting for the drivers. They're there, but they're not. Like this is a year that the Tifosi can walk away from. Like hell yeah, we had a good season.
They got the bingo card.
Yeah.
This is the season, after last season being Fred's first season and building the team up and he gets a pass, he has earned himself some credit this season by winning Monaco, giving them a feel-good vibe, and Monza, proving that they are the kings of Monza, and therefore Fred gets the whole of next season as a learning season for Lewis.
And you go right into Baku next weekend, which isn't all that dissimilar from Monza.
No, I'm hopeful. I'm looking forward to when Lewis wins in a Ferrari at Monza because it'll be amazing. So team orders, Charles because he's the chosen one. Yeah, great strategy from Ferrari. I think they intentionally pulled it off. But you know, there we go. Albon points, Colapinto only 14 seconds behind, and he didn't win. I'd say that's actually a better example of how he was probably better than Logan, although it is a good track for them. So we'll see. Danny's mechanic, he got a penalty. What did he get a penalty for?
Well, Daniel got a penalty for bumping one of the Haas's. I forget which one. He got a 5-second penalty, and then he goes in to serve it, or goes in to do a pit stop, and the mechanic just instinctively touches the front wing to settle the car, and then immediately realizes his mistake, and now he has a 10-second penalty for failure to serve the 5-second penalty.
It sucks, and I really thought that the mechanic had wobbled. He's on his knees, crouched down. I thought he wobbled and reached out for it. But no, when you see the replay from the above shot, he clearly reached out and just completely screwed it. At least he felt really bad immediately afterwards. So credit to him.
He did exactly what he has been trained to do time and time again. Just shouldn't have done it. Like I feel bad for the guy, and you can tell he's like it's like 1 second if I'm going to grab the car, and then like 3 seconds of just like pure regret. I've let the whole team down. This is all my fault. Like
yeah, credit to him for immediately noticing and being like crap, and then getting on with it, doing his job, and then he got out and walked away and was like, oh, well, so good to him. Credit to him.
I think Daniel should go take him out for a beer.
Yes, I agree.
Or it's Italy, limoncello.
Yes. I have a question about the Tifosi. Where do they get the massive flag sheet? I don't know what you call them. They're just ready. They're like within moments of being allowed through that gate, they were in a full this is like when you see an American sports game and they've got all the cheerleadery people with the massive American flag and they filled it out and it's perfect and you're like they've trained to do that for weeks, months.
Well, yeah, because that's been sponsored by the Defense Department,
right? But the Tifosi, who I assume have other things going on in their life, just roll out and they've got 2 enormous flags. It was ridiculous.
Well, so this could be. I might have a European sports question for you then, because I believe I've also seen large banners like this at the football matches.
Yes.
And it strikes me that we can get together and learn how to unfurl a banner at a football match.
Yes.
We should be able to also do it in the grandstands at Monza.
I know, and I accept that, but they just seem so good at it.
Well, they seem pretty good at it, and
yes,
Bayern Munich as well.
It is less a statement about specifically the Tifosi, but how they pull it off. And as an example of how good they are about it, they had it unfurled at the beginning of qualifying in front across the whole grandstand. Like you literally couldn't see out the grandstand because it was unfurled and everything. And they rolled up immediately. The clock went, and everybody started driving out. They unfurled it and put it back in the box. And I'm just like, that's how you do it, right? You got the thing out, you're waving it, and you're doing it. And like, no, we're here to watch the racing. We're not here to celebrate. We're here to watch the racing. So I'll give them credit.
I would imagine that there is probably a section of the bleachers that is like the Ferrari Tifosi support club, whatever it is, and they probably do a little bit of practice in, or you're sitting next to Luigi and Mario. I couldn't pick any 2 worst names to pull out of my hat. Giuseppe,
Giovanni,
yeah,
Luca,
sure. Carlos, maybe. Yeah, Vincenzo, maybe there's Vincenzo.
Leonardo.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, pick all your favorite Italian names. And I'm sure they might get okay, guys. We got to be really good at this.
Yep.
You know. Yeah.
Lewis finally beats Russell in the race. Unlike every other one where Russell ends up in the front, just because he's gone backwards, he went back too far this time and ended up behind Lewis. Lewis ended up in fifth by gaining 1 place. So,
but in a way, I think this is like if George does lose his seat, this is the legacy of George Russell. It is when he is very fast, but he's always 1 millisecond away from putting it into a wall or spinning out and going back down the field. And over the course of a season, I'm not saying Lewis is slow, but it's one of those the slow and steady wins the race. Of Lewis's consistency just will always win out over George because while George will go for it, I don't think George is consistent enough to be really like a World Drivers champion because he doesn't. Maybe he just needs to mellow a little bit like Lewis did. Mm-hmm. But because Lewis, you look back at you looked back more recently than I have at some of his early seasons, and he was probably a little bit like win it or bin it sort of situation. Max was certainly a win it or bin it.
Lewis a little bit was, but man, he was good. Like he may bin it, but it was very rare and it was at the very extreme. And it's so different. I have this theory that there are people who have natural ability and there are people who can overcome that natural ability in F1. I think Lewis has natural ability, and so when he tries to go harder, he goes even higher. I think George is closer to the limit. I think Charles has a similar problem, to be brutally honest. But yes. But I thought that was interesting, especially after Lewis being all like, "Oh, I can't qualify, blah blah blah." I'm like, well, yeah, maybe because the car's just still not great. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that would be George's legacy. If George does lose a seat and things like that, it's that when push comes to shove, George does a lot more of spinning it or making life harder for himself than just collecting the easy points.
He is like Jenson Button, which I've been believing. Like watching back all of these years, outside of the Braun GP years, Jenson Button does a lot of binning it on the extreme. When he's
you mean Braun GP year?
Yes. What did I say?
Years, plural.
Sorry. Yes, I should use the word era and then less specifically. Okay, before we get to the really long conversation, the other breaking news. K-Mag gets a 1 race ban because he went into Pierre Gasly and got another 2 penalty points, which means he's now his 12 points. He gets 1 race ban. And they have to find something to drive his car in Baku, which is really, I'm not sure Baku is a track you want to like be fresh at. It feels like that the castle part is just a recipe for disaster.
Well, it's got to be Ollie Berman, right?
That's what you'd hope. I have a spicy take on that, so let's not get into that.
Okay. Is it Mick Schumacher?
No.
Logan Sargent?
No.
Damn, could have been spicy.
So,
but I think there was a time earlier in the season. Well, first off, on the K-Mag race ban, like I think there was a long time we were saying like, oh, they're actually never going to give anybody enough penalties to get to 12 because so and so and so and so. That they didn't actually want to ban anybody. They just wanted to thread it to be there. Does he not start at 0 or is he still on 12? Like, what happens if he gets like 2 points at like?
that is an excellent question. I actually don't. I have to assume that you either reset to 0 or there is some other reduction because you'd be at 12 again in the next race.
Right, but that's the thing is like if it resets to 0, then like cool, I can go back to being a wrecking ball.
True, which might be good for what Haas needs to get some money by the end of the season.
And then the other thing is that I think there was a questionable penalty that K-Mag got early in the season where they didn't give him penalty points, and this feels like a little bit of a makeup for that.
And it's different stewards every time. So the stewards today felt they needed to avenge the mistakes of the past.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, shall we talk about the performance of Perez, Red Bull, and Max Verstappen? I think
That implies there was performance.
True. No, Perez stays with Max. Like that's the headline that we should be right about. This Perez recovers and stays with Max for the entire race, and basically has a winner chicken dinner. Like Perez is back. He has overcome his problems. He is back, level set with Max Verstappen in 7th position.
Yeah, this feels more like the other way around. Of that car has fallen off in such a way that like Max is stuck next to Perez.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Like, what is going on over there? The car is bad. It still doesn't turn very well. Did you notice that when he pops his DRS open, basically nothing happened this race compared to like last year? Like last year it was like,
Yeah. Perez was close to George Russell, opened the DRS, and then just like barely pulled alongside him. I think we made a similar note about like McLaren last season. Of, like the DRS does nothing. Granted, this is Monza where like the wing is already flat enough that like there's not going to be much more there.
But last year it was still doing it. They pressed that button and it was still went straight past everybody. It was ridiculous. So that car is bad.
And they even lengthened the DRS by like 100 meters.
So it really should have been successful, but it wasn't.
And it was successful for a lot of people that were not driving a Red Bull.
Yes, even people driving the other Red Bull branded cars were doing better.
I don't even know where to start with Red Bull because this has gone from like, okay, they're they seem like they still have enough pace, but they have enough early season success that they'll probably still hold on to at least the drivers' championship too. Okay, well this is getting worse, but they still have Max Verstappen and Max can drive anything. And this weekend was just like, what is going on? Like they're 7 and 8 is nowhere for that Red Bull team recently. Like, when was the last time they qualified that low on merit? Not like from rain or anything. Oh, it's got to be the Renault engine years.
It's got to be maybe sometime in 2020, maybe.
It's been a while. I'm not going to look it up, but it's been a while.
And you just made the statement about the Constructors' Championship. Imagine if Perez had been where Perez should have been, where the Constructors' Championship would be running right now. It'd be in a much better place for Red Bull. Maybe we'd be losing the Drivers' Championship, but the Constructors' Championship, they may not have been unassailable, but they'd have been in a much more comfortable position versus losing it next weekend.
Well, not to mention the fact that if you go for that far, like that's points between him and Lando, like that now they desperately need.
So not only is the car terrible, what was up with their strategy today?
I mean, I get going on the ultimate strategy of like from how far back they were, of like let's put on hards, but like you need to put on hards and go longer than 20 laps.
Right.
Like, they didn't meaningly go far enough on the hards to then be able to still do the one stop. They essentially committed right away to doing a 2-stop, and then Max had like he wasn't really getting any closer to the people in front of him, or as you would think with that sort of tire advantage.
It was ridiculous.
Like after he swapped to the medium on the second stop, he made no inroads into Lewis.
Yeah, it was
absolutely none.
It was ridiculous. I thought that when they were
and Lewis was on a hard.
Yeah, they fresh hard. It should have been going well. But my expectation was after they started and we were getting to the first few laps and everybody on the medium was like, oh, my tires are totally busted. I'm going to come in and stop real early. I thought Red Bull had paid a blinder. They were going to sit out there. They were going to do a one stop by going really long on the hard and then switch into the medium. When the weight had come off the car, the track had cooled down a little bit, and they were going to one stop this to a win. Like
or at least catch McLaren out, which McLaren caught themselves out. We really haven't even talked about that.
I don't know what's going on. It was weird. And then pit stop palooza. Like they didn't execute the pit stops. Like, this is Red Bull. These are they were doing 1.9 second pit stops consistently in this season.
They did their standard summer break pit stop shenanigans and did one purely in the dark at like 2.4.
Like what is going on? Like how?
I think this is getting to the point of like I know when it's the Taiwanese contingent, no Thailand contingent.
Yes, Thailand.
Yes, the Thais. I know I think they're Christian Horner fans, which is why he still has the job for what they control. I think that was the thing we heard.
Yes,
but it's getting to a point of like how many heads are actually going to roll before things get fixed.
Here's the question I have. Why not why they need to roll, but what changed in the team between such a perfectly executed previous 2 seasons that this season, Adrian Newey left. Maybe the car itself was not as good. Fine, whatever. Adrian Newey took his brain away and the car fell off, whatever. But the strategy and the execution and the conversations and the way it happens and the engineering crew not listening to Max because he was like had a battery problem. Like, how does that permeate the team? Like, Adrian wasn't running the team. Maybe Adrian was running the team and Christian Horner just philandering around at the top. How does the culture shift actually arguably after the first third of the season? Like, how did that happen? And it's like Toto has his thing at Harvard where he goes blah blah business blah 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 and the Toto Neutron amazing whatever it is he does. I want to see the one day analysis, the case study from Harvard on the Red Bull culture collapse.
I mean, it's what happens to great sports dynasties at some point in time. It's the 97-98 Chicago Bulls. Like,
but it's not like they did some extended. They basically whiffed it in 2 seasons. And you contrast that with Mr. Schumacher and Mr. Ross Brawn in like that successful period where they kind of held it together. You look at Mercedes, right? Who they whiffed it. They whiffed it for basically 2.5 years, but the culture of the team was cohesive. That kind of held it together, and they kept trying to be good.
I think honestly we're looking at too short of a timeline because if you gotta think, Newey was there from 2009.
Yeah. No, he joined 2005.
2005.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think you have to look at it as they were successful in the 2009-2013 formula with Seb, and they did well. And then once the turbo hybrids came in, they were really handicapped a lot by Renault. And I think there was a lot of team cohesion in there in the sense of, well, we have to do as good a job as we all can do to make up for this Renault engine. And, you really saw a lot of that of like, they took their opportunities where they could, they raced well where they could, if like they waited for Mercedes to screw up on strategy or for a track that they knew was really going to suit them, like Monaco or Singapore, and really go crazy there, where the engine didn't matter as much. But what's the line from the new Formula 1 movie with Brad Pitt? We're going to do our warfare in the corners sort of thing. And then, they just said, screw it, we're going to make our own engine. And I think there was a lot of cohesion around there. So I think, you're looking at what happened over 2 years, but I think really you have to look at like what happened over the last 15 years in order to get back to being a championship leading, championship winning team. And, I think it's it's all started to fall apart because in some ways now you have all these egos in place that are more ego filled than they ever were, and it's I am the one who is responsible for getting this car here, and there are probably about 5 people who think they are the I.
You know, I can subscribe to that. After I heard the interview with some guy whose name I've forgotten from Red Bull, who's on the Beyond the Grid podcast, and I was like, how I didn't really like him. I can absolutely believe that, where there's like this, well, we did it and we're clearly awesome and everything we should do is just fantastic, and you kind of lose that introspection. I think Mercedes maintained in actual, like, you've seen them try to recover. They didn't go like, well, we're entitled to this, we should be winning, so it's blah 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 blah.
There was a tiny bit of that, but not much.
No, there was a little bit, and I think it's very difficult to not have some of that in certain places.
Especially when you just got so used to being at the top for the 7-8 years they were at the top. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
There was an interesting side comment from Marco, which I think fits with some of the culture problems. And you see actually through Red Bull through the history, everybody else's wings are flexing and everybody's whatever it is, and we're all back to flexy wings again. And Marco's like, you know, the McLaren and the Mercedes wings are flexing too much, they should do something about it. And I'm like, I kind of understand what you're saying, but at the same time, it's been adjudicated a number of times. Why don't you just make a flexi wing? And I don't even think they're doing it from the perspective of the rules are the rules and you should stick with the rules. They're doing it because they're like screwed, and so I need to pick on everybody else.
Didn't Red Bull have a flexi wing issue like a couple years ago?
Yeah, they had flexi everything problems a few years ago.
No, but even when they were fast, because I think Mercedes was complaining about a Red Bull wing.
Yep. So I don't know what's going on with Red Bull. I would love to see a business situation. I feel there's something in there that's like deeper, and my cynicism is like the attitude of Horner, but the thing that he did, and not what he did necessarily in the act of philandering as Horner, but the way he tried to like deal with it and the way he probably communicated within the team, I think just broke a lot of people. And like when you lose the culture that is successful and you're holding it together and you lose respect for people, it just breaks a bunch of stuff.
I think we also can't discount how much influence Dietrich probably had over the team.
Yep. No, I can
or maybe how much he kept Helmut reined in.
Or how much he kept Horner reined in.
Yeah.
He helped with Adrian Newey, because in my rewatch of all the F1s, maybe it was actually an interview with Adrian Newey that happened at some point. But it was basically I went to Red Bull because Dietrich came and talked to me and he sold me on it, and he was like, yes, you should come do this, and I eventually decided to do it. And that he was the one that was holding the team together because of just his presence, for want of a better term. And that now that it's gone, there's a power vacuum and everybody's just causing chaos. It's ridiculous. It's frustrating, and it bothers me when successful organizations whiff it. Like there's one thing where you go forward in your team and your culture maintains itself and you don't quite get it right and you work hard to get back. It's not the loss of success; it's the fact that the team just like seems to be screwing itself up.
Yeah, I think really that's where the problem started, is the power vacuum left by Dietrich. Because if you want to think, if you have 5 people who think they are the reason Red Bull is, but you have him that's overarching everybody saying, nope, this is my team, I'm funding this, so and so and so. You know, that's the guy. Even if Christian Horner's the team principal running the day-to-day, even if Adrian Newey is the technical director running the development of the car, now you have a power vacuum, and there are people who have probably tried to seize power in the power vacuum, and until either somebody steps up, and maybe that's Christian, maybe that's somebody else, or maybe it's somebody on the Red Bull energy drink side who just says, nope, all y'all are gone, we're restarting from scratch.
Do you remember the rumors when immediately, maybe in the first month after Dietrich died, that there was this whole rumor that Red Bull was up for sale?
Yeah.
I wonder if some of it came from that. And that's the reality, is that it stopped being the guardian angel of like, go be successful in F1, don't screw up my profit margins, for want of a better word. And now it's like, there's people playing power games behind the scenes because they want to be associated with it, and it's just all corrupt. It's not with politics.
The founder CEO is gone and the MBAs have taken over.
Correct, exactly. If I find out McKinsey's been involved, I'll know what's going on.
They've definitely been involved.
Shall we talk about the driver of the day / the driver who couldn't wait for the day to be over?
Absolutely.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, my driver of the day was Charles Leclerc. He made a bad Ferrari strategy work.
You need to dig in deeper on the bad strategy.
Well, we talked about it a little bit, but he was surprised how early they called him in for giving his medium tire slots in life, and he wasn't sure they were going to be able to go the full distance left on the hards, and probably thought at some point in time they were going to pit, but he kept it going. He was following Piastri there for a while. There was a couple laps there where Piastri set fastest lap and Charles was like immediately right behind him, set fastest lap, so he was slipstreaming him well. He was looking after his tires. Then when he did get clear air, he kept pushing the pace, and he did just enough to keep Oscar behind as Oscar and Lando closed in. And as much as we love to praise Carlos Sainz as the true number 1 Ferrari driver, like Carlos's tires just fell to pieces in this race, and they were younger than Charles. So it just really proves that when Charles is properly motivated at a good a track that suits his car, he can get the job done very well.
So it's a bad strategy because Carlos ran the actual strategy of how it was likely to go down, and Charles pulled it out of the bag and overcame the bad strategy as proof of the fact that he won. I can subscribe to that. I will subscribe to that. But we have to also remember that Ferrari poured all the possible money they could possibly find into bringing all the upgrades, including a specific Monza only rear wing this year. And Carlos got a new engine.
I love the idea that Ferrari just goes all in to win at Monza, and like that's the successful season for them. Like, sure, we'll develop the car, but we'll also develop it specifically for Monza.
Oh yeah. Why did I write it? Oh, I'm gonna pull this up from the spicy takes and ribs in a specific context.
But to be fair, I think a Monza specific car could be good next week at Baku. It could probably also be somewhat decent in Mexico as well.
What about Las Vegas?
Could be good at Vegas. I could see it being good at Vegas.
Oh, okay. And who's your bad day? Who had a bad day? They wanted to be done with today.
Daniel Ricciardo's poor mechanic. I feel really bad for that guy.
Yeah, that suck.
I almost put Max in this category because I think Max had a very bad day, but bad day in the sense of there was at one point he was yelling at the team to be like, hey guys, could you actually focus on doing your jobs instead of like I feel like the only one I'm trying to win.
That's just for me. It's just like such a Lewis had that earlier this season, and I just think it's an example of the team not thinking deeply about getting that together. So my driver of the day is K-Mag because he embraced who he really is and what has he got left to lose, and just drove like he didn't care. Resulting in a 1 race ban, which really is about him getting a vacation. It's just because he's tired, he wants to spend some time with his kids, etc. And the driver who couldn't wait to be done for the day.
The better headline there is K-Mag doesn't like Azerbaijan.
Fair point. Would you want to go back? I don't know.
It looks nice.
Yeah, it's like an authoritarian regime. But where isn't an F1 track in an authoritarian regime these days?
I was going for the architecture looks interesting, and the Caspian Sea is pretty cool, and the whole thing's like below sea level, which is interesting. Sure, I'd visit.
Yeah, I'd give it a chance. I also think that the driver who wanted to be done for the day was K-Mag because he doesn't care and knows he's out. At the time, I said it was out for the rate for F1, but it turns out he's not in the next race either, so who knows?
Both your driver of the day and driver who couldn't wait for the day to be over is Kevin Magnussen.
Yes.
Awesome.
Spicy takes and rumors?
Sure, let's get it done.
The next team, Mexican Mafia, is now in control of Red Bull.
The only reason I'll push back on that is that I think the Mexican Mafia is a lot more organized than the Red Bull team currently is.
Brutal. I can subscribe to that. But my theory is this is Perez's team right now, and it's just waiting for Max to leave.
Yeah. I mean, I could see if we really want to go some off-season spice that could come out.
Helmut Marko said that they didn't want to lend Liam out because they might have to replace the driver, and everybody assumed it was one of Yuki, Danny, or Checo. It's Max.
It's Max.
Danny, everybody's like monkey paw in this. Let's get Danny back in the Red Bull, and now they've lost Max.
George's deal was a 1+1 for this year and an option for the next year, right?
I believe so.
He might not even be safe for 2025.
Yes, there's still a chance. They haven't announced it. They haven't announced George's driving for next year. They did say the 2 drivers for next year, but there's still plenty of time to fuck with that. Yeah, Perez's team.
That could be the spice. Is either Liam goes in and Max is gone out of Red Bull.
Yeah.
To be fair, honestly, if I'm Max, I might jump to Mercedes right now too. Like,
I know that the Joss Max like vibe is all kinds of weird, but like if you just take a step back and you think about what Max talks about sometimes off track and the way he interacts with people, like I actually don't think he wants toxic culture. He's brutally honest because he's Dutch. But like it's just like if you're waking up and you're like this team's falling apart, even if you think they can technically pull it back together again, do you want to work in that environment? I don't know. He's getting old now. He's what, 28? He needs to think about this. There's a good chance.
yeah, I think it's the Red Bull of when he joined was they were scrappy, they were fighting for wins where they could, they were trying, and like now this is what happens when they've had success.
Yeah,
and like honestly, I wouldn't put it past Mercedes to be a top flight car next year because they fix their suspension issues, and if they can build the whole car around that fixed suspension issues.
If you're Audi, are you making a phone call
to Max?
Yeah.
I don't think he'd pick up.
No, I don't think he would.
I mean, to be fair, if it's kind of like where Adrian Newey ends up. Like, if Adrian Newey goes to Aston Martin, does Stroll lose a seat if they pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Max"?
No,
like,
Fernando loses it.
Sure.
There was a rumor immediately before we came on to record that it has been confirmed that Adrian Newey has signed the contract. There was no information about who it was with.
But he signed a
contract. And Fred Vasseur was asked about it again this week, and Fred's like, "I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The team isn't built around one person. We're together, and we all work better together to create the best possible team we can come up with."
I would just love if he signed a contract with like Hedrick Motorsports or something to build a NASCAR.
Yes.
Just like, no, I'm doing something really different. I'm gonna go build a stock car.
My other spice taking rumor is Max and Toto have already agreed that he's going to Max. It's like a handshake agreement, and that George will be in another team in 2026.
I think it depends how quickly that Red Bull implodes. Because if it's done by, if Max loses the drivers this year, I don't know if he stays around.
So here's an interesting question for you. Let's say Max stays with Red Bull for the rest of the season, and he gets to the end of
Which he will.
But maybe he goes into next season saying he's going to stay with Red Bull, and Red Bull just implodes. How much do you think other teams want Max that they will just take him mid-season and fire whoever happens to be in? Let's ignore whether it's Mercedes. Are there a bunch of teams where they're like, actually, Max, no, I know that you will be difficult to work with in this team, and you've not shown that you will work amazingly well in our team because we're just kind of a crappy car. How do you think that plays out? Do you think Max ends up in a weird, risky situation where he decides Red Bull sucks so much and he just leaves F1 because not because he wants to leave F1, but because he can't get a seat?
Well, I think the really interesting thing with Max is he is not Fernando Alonso. He is not Lewis Hamilton. We joke a lot about like the with the Andretti team of like, oh, you need Formula One more than Formula One needs you. Like it was the whole thing the FIA said. And I think in a sense, like Formula One needs Max Verstappen a lot more than Max Verstappen needs Formula One. Like I think you run the risk if he has like too shitty of a car for too long, he just leaves. He's like, no, I'm done with this. Like he can do a Mika Hakkinen and just go take a sabbatical that never ends.
Yes, I 100% subscribe to that.
Like I could see, I don't think it's going to happen, but I could definitely see a situation where if that Red Bull continues the trajectory it's on, and let's say it's the 5th best car next season, like yeah, but that's not out of the realm of possibility for it to be fighting with Aston for 4th currently. Like
wait for Williams to fix their car because I think they're on the right trajectory. Red Bull
Williams is on a good trajectory. Aston Martin has had some pace in the past, and if Newey has signed with them, like you could suddenly go from those are two Mercedes powered cars that we know have a good engine. If they can fix the aero, they're good. So you're talking about a spot where Max could go from battling for wins to battling for a point.
Oh, beautiful.
Like that's not out of the realm of possibility.
Love
but
it.
I don't think he wants to do that because like he's talked about with his iRacing, like a lot of the emotions for him for winning an iRacing event are the same as for winning a Grand Prix because it's the same sort of thing of hanging out with your friends, doing a good job, racing well, getting a good result. And I think you're in a situation where if Max is suddenly in a position for squabbling with points, if you're another team, you take him as quickly as you can because the last thing you want him to do if you want him in your team is to go, oh, this sucks, I don't want to be here, leave, and then
never come back.
Find something else that's equally fun for him. Like maybe V8 supercars in Australia or something, or he starts doing weird side quests of like doing WEC and things like that, and starts to have fun over there and realizes like, oh, because like one of the things I think he's tried to do is help sim racers become actual race car drivers. And if he starts like trying to get a GT3 team together for like Le Mans and he drives with like some of his sim buddies, that chance of getting back into Formula One, I think he's gonna have a lot more fun doing that.
Oh, I agree. Especially when he's got 2 championships and it's like, oh wait, 3 championships. He's got 3 now, hasn't he? Yeah, it's fucking 2021. Blah, 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 blah. He's got 3 championships. Like how many more do you need? You beat everybody else, and like Fernando's never gonna get it, so it's all good.
Yeah, the question there is just like to some extent, it's like how many championships do you need? Like if he retires now, it's always going to be a what if, is he the greatest of all time? Maybe not sort of situation. But like that's just fun discussions in a bar, and we've already given Ayrton Senna maybe more credit than he deserves, even though he was really good.
And if you want to beat Lewis's records, you have to stay in for probably another 2 seasons if you even have the same dominance as Red Bull had last year, and they clearly don't.
Right, but in reality, like it took Lewis a lot of seasons to win 7 titles.
7 titles, have 101 wins, and all the other stats that he's got. It's you've got a long way to get there, and so maybe it's just not worth it.
And he's already said like he doesn't want to race to 400 Grand Prix, which will probably like. And you also think of how long the seasons are getting. That like he can probably hit Lewis's win record if he's in a good car, but like to equal the amount of like championships Lewis has won, that's a lot of seasons of driving. That's a lot of races driving. That's a lot of globetrotting.
It is, and think how much fuel he pays for his little plane. Shall we move on to the championship watch since we've been talking about the statistics and complexities of winning the championship?
Yeah, I mean at this point, so Lando actually made up a little bit of the ground he needed because I think he was like 7.8 points per weekend. He's done 7.75 thanks to that last lap, fastest lap that he got off Max. That was actually I think a huge swing because that went from like you need under 8 points a race to above 8 points a race, depending on how that worked out. So I think there's a little bit of interesting things there of should McLaren have swapped Lando and Oscar around? If I can formulate a good theory on McLaren being selfish, I absolutely will. But I think I didn't have enough time to put one together for this week. We got 2 weeks before Azerbaijan. Maybe I'll have some free time to put that together. McLaren put out a really interesting tweet this week that was like, we stomped Max Verstappen at his home track, and there were a lot of quote tweets of it that were like, this is a bit like sore winners that we never really saw from like Red Bull or Mercedes.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing there. But yeah, so Lando's championship hopes are still very much alive, but I think we are giving a lot of credit to a 2-time race winner, and I think Lando proved this weekend that Lando's biggest threat to Lando's championship is Lando. Like, I mean, he had the fastest car on pole position, and he ended up 3rd.
Yeah. He did have a bad pit stop there.
Not that bad of a pit stop. Charles is actually still somewhat decently alive for the championship. He needs 11 points on Max every race weekend, or 10.75. But he's only 24 points behind Lando. So like in reality, if he can finish ahead of Lando a couple times, like he's neck and neck with Lando, and also that sucks maximum points away from what Lando can put in on Max. So this could get very tight towards Abu Dhabi.
If Ferrari had correlation working for like the last 5 races, Charles could be in number 2.
He could be.
And he could have been in chance. He could be the one looking for 7.75 points per race.
Right. And Red Bull surprisingly still lead the constructors after this race. It was looking close there. They have 446 points, so they are 8 points in front of McLaren. But Ferrari is not that far behind with only 407 points. Like it's very possible Red Bull could finish 3rd in the constructors.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance of that. I think unless there's something fixes the car. I don't know what's going to happen there.
But I think I saw a chart earlier this week that like Perez, like as much crap as we get on Logan, Perez I think actually leads the standings in the Deconstructors Championship.
He's in a bit this weekend. And remember, Logan out-qualified a Red Bull, what was it, 3 times or 4 times this season?
Yeah, you're talking about what is estimated at like $3.6 million worth of damage. That's a lot of upgrade.
That's a lot of upgrade. But when you're paying off the Mexican Mafia so they'll let you get out of the track in a few weeks' time, those costs are important. You just got to pay what you got to pay.
Yeah, the real question is like, is this also some of the benefit or not, the punishment we are seeing towards Red Bull of having less wind tunnel time and having less CFD time from the catering fiasco of a couple years ago? Has it finally bit it? But you know they've been out of that punishment cycle for a year to 18 months now.
I think it does compound, but I would only subscribe to that if they had been crap from the beginning of the season. And that's the thing. Like when they started at the beginning of the season, it was like everyone was like, oh, 2024 is like 2023 again. This is lame and boring. And so at this point, it's not that they have the same amount, but they're not far off in terms of their allotment in season. And so it's very strange.
Yeah, I would have expected like if everybody closed up like while they were in their penalty phase, like I would have been okay. Yeah, this penalty means something. But like the fact that like the penalty no longer exists and now everybody has closed up, it's like, oh, you're not doing a good job developing the car anymore because you actually have more CFD and wind tunnel time than you had last year.
Yeah,
that's not great.
Nope.
Well, we've started to ramble on for long now. Should we have predictions for Baku?
Let's go for it.
What was once the European Grand Prix in questionably Europe?
It's not Europe.
Is it technically in Europe?
It might be on the continent of Europe. Versus, it's not part of the EU. It's not part of the European Council, I don't think. Or it doesn't use the euro.
Show nation borders. Ooh, it's right there.
It is.
It's close.
It's close. Because the Ukraine is not far from it. Ukraine is on the chart to becoming part of the EU, and that means it really is part of Europe. And I think.
There's the whole Caucasus Mountains.
Yes, and remember, Turkey is in both Asia and Europe.
List of states and territories. Azerbaijan is listed as a state or territory on the continent of Europe.
Fascinating. I didn't work about that continent longer. But anyway, in Baku, what are we hoping for? What is the prediction? What's going to happen?
Actually, only half of Azerbaijan is in Europe. The other half is somewhere else.
Asia.
Asia?
Yep.
Yeah. It is the Caucasus Mountains are the dividing line, and the Caucasus Mountains go through Azerbaijan.
There's oil in them.
And today, this podcast is also educational about the geographic borders of the European continent.
Today's episode brought to you by Geography and Management Culture. So in Baku, what are we hoping for? We are hoping for a car that is managing the traffic for safety reasons. Please.
Actually, should we change the prediction to no safety car just to ensure there is a safety car?
Down with that. There will be no safety car in Baku.
All right, yes. There is no safety car. We will have no safety car and no yellow flags in Baku.
Perfect. Love it. You are...
During the race. For practice and FBs, for practice fine.
Yep. You think Charles is going to win again?
I do think Charles is going to win again. I think usually Baku and Monza are separated by a lot on the calendar. They're a lot closer this year, and I think they're surprisingly similar tracks. You have some chicanes, you have some 90-degree corners, and you have some really long straights.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that they might be able to tweak their Monza car a little bit and do well.
Okay. Your next prediction?
I'm going to say Lando continues to finish ahead of Max, but not by enough to help his championship.
I would subscribe.
So he will finish less than 7.75 points clear of Max.
Okay. Interesting. So basically, I think implicitly in that, you're saying he's going to probably be in third, but lower than third or lower.
Well, he could be like Max or Lando, because it could be like second and third. It could be like, yeah. So there's some situations in there, but I think that is Lando does not help his championship enough.
Okay. My prediction, which I alluded to earlier, Oliver Behrman is not going to get the ride in the Haas in Baku, despite the fact that he is signed as a driver. Apparently, they need to have a conversation with Fred Vasseur because he's the reserve driver for Ferrari. I think he drove earlier in the season with the appendicitis situation. And I think it's going to be Pietro Fittipaldi, who has been the reserve driver before. I think that's going to be really interesting, and I think it's a challenging track to do your first stand-in on.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
There was something at the top that you alluded to, was what deal with the devil would you make as a Ferrari driver? And we haven't really talked about that.
Well, yeah, that was alluding to the monkey paw of Charles winning both Monza and Monaco in the same season.
Okay,
so
yes.
what deal with the devil would he make? Is it he has to sell low-fat ice cream?
I think it might have been. Did he have to get his puppy?
Yeah.
It was a picture of Alex, his girlfriend, and the puppy, who I've forgotten the name of, and Charles celebrating afterwards, and they looked so adorable. The dog was right in there, licking everybody's face.
Maybe it's you have to have one of the greatest drivers in Formula 1 as your teammate, and it's going to ruin your whole reputation for forever because you're just going to get beaten by an old man time and time again.
I love it! Yes!
Yeah, well, once again, thank you for listening to Tinfoil Helmets. If you have any feedback, please write into us at feedback@tinfoilhelmets.com. And let us know your conspiracy theories, feedbacks, and wants. For example, Dominic and I talked for at least 30 minutes before this podcast started about Oasis versus Coldplay, and which was the better British band. So if you want to know that, you can subscribe to our Patreon that currently doesn't exist, and next time we'll record it. So tell your friends to please listen, like, rate, and subscribe, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. If it's on the teleprompter, he'll read it.
Exactly. I'll do what it says and nothing more, nothing less.